Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and race fans alike. And we are here for the Shawfire Supercars Series, Season 2, in fact. Season 1 was earlier in the year, but the MotorMotion E-Series Supercars is go again. So we are here at Dragontrails today. In the commentary box tonight, it is myself, George Cooke, and the legendary Nick Pautasso. Nick, how are you doing tonight, mate?
Oh, what a great way to bring us back here to Shawfire Supercars. What an absolute pleasure to have our supercars back on the grid this evening and this afternoon. So wherever you're joining us, thank you so much for joining us on the MotorMotion E-Series YouTube channel. If you've seen already, we've had the Brock Lobby had their broadcasted live and streamed, but now we are getting ourselves a bit of a delayed broadcast into the commentary box with us. We have the Johnson Lobby being broadcasted to you live on a delayed stream, and as well we'll be bringing you the Richards Lobby results at the end of it. So I'm excited. It's great to have the supercars back in MotorMotion E-Series. It's actually a fan favorite. It's incredible the amount of hype this series gets compared to what we see in the other categories like the Track Racer TCR Cup, the Player 1 GT3 Championship. There's always something about this supercar series that brings just excitement to the field, and it just brings more drivers into it. And I'm very excited to see how our Johnson Lobby drivers go tonight.
Well, we're big fans of the Division, Division 2 plus sort of situation. So Johnson being essentially the second division in the Supercar Series is going to produce some excellent racing, I hope. Of course, we're going to be bringing you all the information about the series, what's coming up, and we'll be looking a little bit further down the line as well. I think, and Nick, you can correct me on this, I think that we've got about 8 races total in this season. Very much looking forward to all that. It'll be interspersed with a bit of TCR Cup as well, but look forward to the live broadcast. And unfortunately, it was my fault. We've got a delayed broadcast, unfortunately, today, as I was unwell last week, so we couldn't bring you that. But the regular broadcast schedule is going to be Tuesday, the live broadcast of the Brock Lobby with Ryan Palmer, and then on the Saturdays, it'll be us in the comms box here to do the delayed broadcast of the Johnson Lobby with Richard results. And we have a few little things to talk about later on in terms of potentially running some Richard Lobby broadcasts as well, but we'll keep that under wraps just for the minute. But focus at the moment on the current race today. It's going to be absolutely excellent because we've got for you a 20-minute sprint and a 40-minute race here at Croatia Dragontrail. It's the reverse Dragontrail Gardens layout. Of course, it's the Johnson Lobby broadcast with myself and Nick Pautasso. Going to be looking forward to a 10-minute qualifying as well before we reverse the grid for 40-minute race after our 20-minute sprint. So that equates to about 13 laps for the sprint and about 26 for the race, doesn't it, Nick?
Absolutely. It is a brand new format here at MotorMotion E-Series for our second season of the Shawfire Supercars. As you said, it is a 20-minute sprint followed by a 40-minute reverse grid race. So compared to what was season 1, it was just the one qualifying, one race system. We are now actually bringing in a 2-race format, and it definitely spices up what we saw in the live broadcast of the Brock Lobby. I'm very excited to see what the Johnson Lobby boys have to do. And, as we always say, Division 2 is always our division, George, when it comes to broadcasting and excitement. So I'm very excited to see what the lobby in the Johnson Lobby has in store for us. But if you are enjoying us, thank you so much, and we appreciate your support. So if you do follow us, if you do have a Facebook account, follow us on the MotorMotion E-Series Facebook page. And as well, if you are interested in racing, join us in the MotorMotion E-Series paddock chat, where you get to have all the information, socialize and interact with all of your current drivers and fans of the MotorMotion racing. And as well, if you'd like to get more information, more of the results and of anything MotorMotion, you just join us at www.motormotioneseries.wordpress.com, and where you find all the information, live results, and all of the news feed that you get from us here at MotorMotion. We're very excited to get the racing underway here at the Johnson Lobby. But George, it is your first time here, or actually, we could say in theory, the second time here joining us in the Supercars series. And how are you liking it so far? Obviously, you've said to me in the background you haven't been keeping up with real life supercars, but what have you seen so far that has just ruffled your feathers and bringing you all the excitement?
You know what it is? It's the heavy nature of these cars, the lack of aero, and the fact that you are slinging about 1.5 tons of V8 muscle around the track. I was expecting to see a bit more of a dull race, I'll be honest with you. So my expectations were unbelievably low. And the bar has been raised by what we saw in the Brock lobby. Yes, that was sort of my first race there. But literally, this is my first introduction to supercars. So I'm as new as it gets to the concept. I do know that the Gen 3 cars are brand new. I do know that there's been a bit of controversy about them. But I've been really enjoying the sort of playoff between the Camaro here and the Ford Mustang, which has been absolutely brilliant to watch the difference in that. And also, it's the fact that the setups are actually allowed. You're allowed to do tuning in this series. 600 performance points, I think it is. I can't remember exactly, Nick, but honestly, that has been super exciting and really interesting to watch, thinking who's got the setup right, who's got the car, what the car is suited to in terms of the track, and how the track will evolve and produce some good racing. So it's been absolutely brilliant so far. And yeah, I think we're going to potentially just jump straight into qualifying. But Nick, yeah, honestly, it's been a great little experience watching the supercars so far.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's everyone's favorite P word. No, not as in a urine, but everyone's favorite P word. It is the parity that has been the biggest talking point in real world and in the MotorMotion Shawfire supercars. And thanks to our hard workers in the background in Andrew Scott and his team of expert drivers and testers, we have actually brought down the parity down. We've brought the parity down to almost equal performances, and we are getting them so close. I think it's the closest that we've ever actually had towards parity, and getting that Ford Mustang and the Chevrolet Camaro SS towards equal parity. Apparently, in a few tracks, we've seen them as close as 2/10. And it's always been switching them around. So it could be a few tenths going the Mustang's way, a few tenths going up towards the Camaro's way. And it is the most important thing with these cars. You have to get the tuning right. The tuning is the most crucial part in these, what supposedly race cars, but in theory we do have to treat them as road cars, because that's what they are. We give them wings, we give them extra power. The car is very unstable. It's all up to the driver and their team to get these cars settled and in the perfect racing conditions. But it is great to see that we have a huge names and big teams returning to the field, and some familiar names that we know and love in MotorMotion. And also we have some new teams joining us as well. As we will look through that as the Johnson Lobby races go by, we'll be able to have a look to see who is who and who has joined what team.
Speaking of the Johnson Lobby, and yes, we're excited to go through all the new teams and the teams that are existing and all the familiar names, and in some cases some unfamiliar names, which is always great to see. So lots of participation, 3 lobbies for the Supercars Series Season 2, and I believe we've got something in the order of 12 to 14 or 13 teams on the grid. Is that I think that's about right, or 12 teams. Nick, maybe you know the number off the top of your head. In fact, I've got the number right here. It is, in fact, if I do the counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 teams have signed up for this, with 3 drivers spread across 3 divisions. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. But anyway, speaking of the Johnson Lobby, here we are with the qualifying results from the 10 minutes of qualifying at Dragontrail. Of course, we'll come up with you, give you guys some information on the standings a little bit later in the presentation, or the stream. But Nielsen takes pole position there for Whiplash Motorsport, one of the new teams on the grid, followed by Dean van der Zandt for CP Motorsport. I believe they're a returning participant. And then Matthew Jointson will take P3 for Juice Motorsport. Jay Crow will take P4 on the grid for Colin Racing Team, a name we know very well here at MotorMotion. And then a brand new team, one that I'll let you talk about, Nick, because you're in charge of this one here, Wakefield in P5 for Mash Spuds Racing.
Yes, it is Mash Spuds Racing return to the Shawfire Supercars. We had ourselves a very, you could say, a very good, successful first season in the Supercar Series, where we actually were driving the Ford Mustang in our first season, and then thanks to the lucky draw that was broadcasted off stream a few weeks ago, we've actually been handed a racing credential to drive the Camaros for the first time. So we've gone from Mustang to Camaro. Season to season, and yeah, it's actually been an awesome experience to feel a difference between the 2 cars. Obviously, there are some drivers here on the grid that have some familiarity with some of the cars. Obviously, for example, Dean van der Zandt, returning CP Motorsports, they were in the Mustang last time, and they joined in late in season 1, and the CP Motorsports became a late entry after one of the teams pulled out. CP Motorsports put their hand up, and they got the wreck of the Ford Mustang. So Van der Zandt is very familiar with that car. DP Mario as well in P6. He was also a familiar name in Season 1, driving the Mustang with ISA Esports, and then what was before Rushfire Racing. And we also have Samson, who was another name that swapped over from Mustangs to Camaro. So a lot of drivers, a lot of teams swapping around in cars. So obviously the familiarity that you get with cars from the first season, then you get to the second season, brand new car, brand new slate, you've got no data whatsoever, you're starting from scratch, and that just makes things very hard.
Too right. And rounding out the grid, of course, we've got Troy Britnell for Hooncorp Esports, who I believe are a brand new entry this year. And then Matt Kutcher rounding out the grid, Black Rose Racing, a very familiar name, with some very strong credentials against their team. So that is your qualifying layout for the Johnson Lobby. We're now going to go live-ish, down on track for our delayed broadcast here of the Johnson Lobby. And starting off with a 20-minute race, 13 laps, and no tyre requirements, I believe. So we'll be seeing lots of soft running today, I believe. So here we go, Nick. We're going to go down onto the grid and get this race started. So buckle in, because the lights are going red. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and we will hold. False grid start, of course. There's a jump start there from Dean van der Zaan. That's not ideal for him, but Heathen gets away nicely. Matthew Joynton as well on the back, goes ahead of Birdman immediately. But look at the Cooke driver developer there. He goes flying up the middle of all the cars, followed by the Hasseltine Automotive car of DP Mario there. And he's gotten a good start, has DP Mario. He's got Cez in front of him. There's the Mad Turtle racing car, and boom, down the field we go for the first time. Lots of cars jumping around, seeing what they can pull off in the first couple of corners. 3 wide, oh dear. That was very, very close there, but Birdman is going to get ahead of PLE Black Friday. It's Matthew Joynton at the start here, and DP Mario is flying up the field. He's up to P4 already.
Wow, what a chaotic start. This is why we love our lower division racing here. You get all excitement and you get all the chaos going through the first couple of corners there, but it's great to see a guy like Birdman for Colin Racing Team, a brand new entry, taking over from I believe the West End Mechanical in Season 1, and that's been transferred over to Mitch Collin to bring his team in, Colin Racing Team. And he's brought a great driver in Birdman in second place. And then we have back behind Matthew Joynton, DP Mario, inside the top 4, but leading the way is H. Nielsen, and it's a brand new team here, and it's actually run and owned by a very familiar name here, George. It's run by Monica Camilleri, and she's brought her team, Whiplash Motorsport, to the field here, and I'm very excited to see how this team goes. I definitely saw how strong Monica was in the Brock Lobby and her team, and now she's got a great driver in Nielsen, and he's leading the way at the end of the first lap.
Yeah, and pulling out a bit of a gap as well on Birdman there. That's Jeremy Crow for Colin Racing Team. So I'm not as familiar with Colin Racing Team as well, but I'm assuming that's Mitch Collin?
Yes, correct.
There we go. And 3 wide, just looking at that back there. So we've got 3 wide going on here. Captain Snooze and DP Mario going at it with the Cooke driver developer in Sage and Alexander coming in behind them. And actually, I don't recognize that livery. You're going to have to help me out here once again. And who's that? Captain Snooze. Let's see what they're doing here.
That is Wakefield.
Yes.
That is the Johnson teammate of myself and Paul Rudd. So we have Wakefield up into P4, so having a great start on his debut here at MotorMotion E-Series. He's actually making his first time out, and what a great way to put your name out there in the Shawfire Supercars. Right behind us, we saw DP Mario with a brand new team. Oh, we see some contact in the background there. We see Richard Robinson getting all sorts of carnage there, just pretty much being belted around the track there by a few drivers. We saw a couple of road sick drivers there getting involved. I think there was a Hasseltine Motorsport getting involved there. So a lot of bit and budge in these first couple of laps. It's just the drivers that just have to get used to these cars. I mean, if you go throughout the weeks and if you see the Gran Turismo 7 lobbies and all the drivers just coming in, you can see teams putting in all the effort and trying to get these cars set up. You see teams like CP Motorsports only, you see private lobbies. So you see a background spin there for the CP driver. That is, unfortunately, Van der Zaan in the car 232, and his day's just gone from bad to worse. Started P2, jump started, and now he's facing the wrong way and in last place. And unfortunately for him, that is going to be a long road to recovery to get anywhere near inside the top 10 in this race. So he'll need to have a strong performance in race 2.
correct. And of course, at the moment, still leading the way, it is Nielsen for Whiplash Motorsport, leading in the Ford Mustang at the moment. And Monica will be in the grandstand, absolutely stoked with that initial opening lap. Matthew Joynton has actually found a way past Crow here. So Crow is falling back just a little bit, whether or not Matthew Joynton had a little bit of the slipstream in effect. But for Juice Motorsport, they will be pretty stoked. And then, of course, we've got old Wakey back there. So he's going for it, Mr. Wakefield for Mash Spuds Racing, P4. Nothing to scoff at this stage of the race, and he's pulled out a massive gap back to the Hasseldine automotive car of DP Mario. So a big gap happening there. DP has got the Scarborough Motorsport team in tow here with Marty McFardy, their team leader, followed by Bruce the Shark, one of our favorites from some other series. And oh, Marty's gone for a massive slide there. Scarborough Motorsport car like in the wall, in fact. Diffusion Race Engineering will now come up the back with Aiden Sampson. So Dylan Scarborough, that is going to cost him. But Bruce the Shark isn't really running away with it just yet. Side by side through the last quarter. 14 turns here, of course, followed by a giant 781 meter straight. So
and Dylan in the pit lane.
There we go. He is indeed.
Dylan Scarborough's in the pit lane. He just obviously took too much entry into turns 10, 11, 12 in that chicane there. It just went a little bit too deep on the entry of turn 10, just clipped the wall, and unfortunately that gave him some front left suspension and front splitter damage. So unfortunately for Scarborough Motorsport, that's not the start they want. He was looking up high pretty there, as high as 6th place. So I believe from memory, he is actually the reigning champion. I think he's one of the I think he came top 3 last time in season 1. I have to look back through my stats, but that season in Johnson Lobby was actually won by Joel Austin for his net racing team in the Camaro. So he had a great season. Matt Kuchar as well had a very strong season. Unfortunately for him, was well down the order towards the end of the season. Unfortunately couldn't commit to the last couple of races, and that's what gave Austin the victory and the championship for Ned Racing. So Kuchar is looking for a redemption, and he's looking to try and get himself up towards the pecking order where he was in the first season. So far he's in 8th place, but getting all sorts of under pressure from Alexander for the Me Cougar driver development team. Familiar name that we are seeing, that we saw in the TTR Cup. So Me Cougar bringing their RCA into the Shawfire Supercars for the first time, led by their team leader in Andrew Scott. And as we saw in that Brock lobby, as we see there, Alexander going wide there on the exit of turn 12. And as we saw there, as we saw in the Brock lobby, the Me Cougar team really bringing their R&D towards this series, and they are very committed to getting themselves that level 1 credential, that RCA level 1 credential, to be a main feature in the Player 1 GT3 Championship.
Yeah, and they're on track to do it at this stage. And yeah, we just saw Alexander there go very, very sideways throughout the last 3 corners after running very, very wide, picking up a lot of dirt on those tires. And now he's right on the back of Matt Kuchar. So Kuchar's going to have a bit of work to do through the tight S's of the infield section of Dragontrail Garden Reverse. And a very, very tricky section. You've actually done the race here, Nick, before. And I know how hard these cars are going to be. You know, you're losing grip, you're burning out the tires. So what's the strategy here? Do you absolutely send it in this race? Do you try and maintain some tires for the end of the race? What is the general strategy?
I mean, you're definitely asking the wrong person about tyre strategy, my friend. And as you definitely saw in the Brock lobby, yes. I was not very good with my tyres.
This is exactly why I'm asking you, Nick.
Absolutely. I mean, if I had a wheel, I definitely would have been able to make 13 laps, no issues at all. But that is the strategy for our drivers tonight. It's really about just trying to save the fuel, because the fuel for some of these cars is very. You could say it just gulps through its fuel pretty quickly. You could say, for example, the Ford Mustang here, and what I noticed in Season 1, it is very heavy on its fuel, so it does burn a lot compared to what we see in the Camaro. The Camaro is a little bit better on the fuel saving and better through with the lifting and coasting sides of things, and that's exactly what the Ford Mustang drivers have to do. As we see me trying to go for an inside move, but you can see there the difference between the two cars. The Camaro a lot better on the straights there, but the braking performance that the Mustang has is absolutely incredible. And as we saw in the Brock lobby, we definitely saw a few sends by the Ford Mustang drivers, and that's not just because they're going for a full send. It's just because they've got better braking performances over the Camaro. So with us as Camaro drivers, we've got we can't do anything about it. We can't really outbrake a Mustang, because if we do that, we're in the tire barrier. And obviously, unfortunately for Meads, and he didn't really take advantage of that aspect of getting that car on the inside of DP Mario. So maybe a little bit, maybe not lacking too much confidence in that Mustang just yet.
Yeah, well, there's just tricky cars, aren't there? I mean, this circuit in particular as well. You know, if it was any other
Mario goes deep.
Yeah, very deep. Oh, and sideways.
Oh, just collects Mead there on the inside. They just got on the curbing, and there was nothing that he could do. And this has provided Samson a great opportunity to take P6 away from Glenn Mead. But what does Mead do? He's got the better braking performance there, and then you could just see there, you could see the Mustang. It just broke just a lot deeper than the Camaro did, but he managed to get it around the corner. It's absolutely incredible what these cars can do. They've got their strengths, they've got their weaknesses. Obviously, Glenn Mead is taking full advantage of that braking performance, and he's right on the back end of DP Mario, and he's going to look to try and go for that inside move. Will he use the better braking performances as it goes into turn 1? Will Mead take P5 away? No, he doesn't. So he's just not confident in turn 1 yet. But going back to the tyre strategy, yeah, I will definitely see all the drivers on the track, on the grid here tonight, go for that 13 laps on those soft tyres with no issues at all. Obviously, we might look later on in the broadcast to see who's on what tyre, what strategies they're going, but I can definitely assume everyone's on the soft tyres for this first race.
Yeah, I think you'd be foolish not to. And that's what we saw in the Brock lobby last Tuesday, or the Tuesday before last Tuesday, I should say. Everyone was on the soft tyres, and it was just a matter of, you know, how far can you take the tyres? Can you save them at all? And yeah, the big difference, of course, between those on control and those on a wheel, in terms of what you can kind of do in the game to manage the tyres while also throwing a big, heavy car around these corners, in which, you know, they do need to use a lot. And that's Mead going through on DP Mario. Good move there. Mario's gone wide again. I wonder if he's struggling on tyres already.
Yeah, he definitely could be struggling on the tyres.
He's struggling with more than that. Yeah, he's gone for a 720 no-scope into the barriers. No, it's more than that. Oh, dear. It's all gone completely wrong for DP Mario, and disappeared. He has out of the fight for the sixth place there. So, oh dear. Yeah, that's not how you want to end your race. And he was doing so well. He was already run wide several times. What happened there, I wonder, for him?
I think what happened on his end, because these cars have low-end superchargers, I think he just must have caught a little bit of a, he either must have just clipped the grass either on the left or the right-hand side, and once you clip the grass with these with this big car and obviously the torque that comes through it, as you can see there, Alexander just drifting through turn 2. That's absolutely incredible. But you can see that just the power, like just getting these cars down on the power, once you get off the circuit and once you get off the tarmac, whether it's going off running wide on the excess tarmac, especially through this never-ending left-hander, as soon as you get wide on that, and you just lose all grip. And unfortunately for Mario, I believe he just must have caught the grass there. And once you catch the grass, doesn't matter how much you take, it just loses the rear end. The car just doesn't like it at all. So it's just hanging on for dear life. So unfortunately for DP Mario's case, he definitely, that is definitely not a race to remember, because sitting up P5 very nicely and still keeping ahead of Glenn Mead for the Mad Turtle Racing Mustang. He did very well to get that Hasseldean Camaro up into 5th place, but yeah, unfortunately for him, that's his race over, and he's down in 14th and last place after being in P5 only on the previous lap.
Yeah, so he'll have a bit of work to do in race 2 to try and consolidate some kind of result for this this particular round. Alexander's just looking all sorts of sideways, trying to put the power down in the Camaro and just not really finding a lot of traction to do so. And it's compromising him quite a lot on the exit, and that's giving Bruce the Shark a bit of a chance to pull away from him at this stage. And of course, the top 4 at the moment, we've still got Neil up in 1st place for Whiplash Motorsport, Matthew Joynton there for Juice Motorsport, we've got Birdman, who is Jeremy Crow for Colin Racing, and then of course it is Old Wakey for Mashed Spuds Racing. There we go, I got that right. I did get that right. Mash Spuds Racing in P4. So good results for all those top 4 guys. They're spread out fairly widely at this stage, and the real battles going on are kind of at the back of the grid, which we're going to take a look at in just a minute, because Matt Kutcher here is under a bit of pressure from Troy Britnell. Troy Britnell is driving for the brand new Hoons Corp Esports team and doing a good job of it at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. A very well-respected team in the Australian and New Zealand sim community. They're actually one of the, well, they are a New Zealand team who call Esports, so they are very well respected in any forms of racing that they do, whether they are going from league to league, whether they go from Gran Turismo 7 to iRacing or ACC. They're pretty much everywhere, and they've got themselves a really huge squad. I mean, one of their drivers in Tom England, I believe it is, he actually represented Corp Esports and actually went to Amsterdam for the GT World Tour for the Nations Cup, and he actually did a solid job for Team New Zealand, driving alongside the legendary Cy Bishop, and he did a very good job to get that car. I believe it was high up as P2 in that race there in the I believe it was the Gran Turismo X 2019 Formula car. So did a very good job, and you know, to represent his name out there in the field there. You can see other drivers as well. Troy Bricknell, I believe, obviously, we do have a few drivers that you will see along the field. You will see the HC name. As we come back to Scarborough, it just goes from bad to worse, unfortunately. Just drifting. It's just pretty much, we just caught him at the back end there, just with the rear facing the wrong direction, unfortunately. So as we see Robertson into the pit lane, I wonder if there might be something happening on his end there, or maybe just a change of tyres. I mean, you're down the order there. You're not probably really fighting for a position there. So for Robertson and Road Sig Racing, not the debut that he wanted for this round. But yeah, like I was saying, like Hoon Corp are very well respected in any league that they participate. So anytime you see a Hoon Corp car, you definitely have to be worried, especially as well. I mean, even with Van der Zandt in the CP Motorsports car, CP Motorsports, Hoon Corp, you know, I believe you've got teams, you know, such as, or you could even say here, Scarborough Motorsport, Black Rose Racing, MSR, all those names that you see on the grid. They're very well respected teams, but they are drivers and teams that you do not want to be battling against, because they can definitely be putting you under pressure.
Exactly, and of course we've seen Lewis Atkinson, who's been featured in the GT3 Champs alongside, I believe it was the team with Monica Camilleri in it previously, before she made her own team, and I'm struggling to remember because my memory is absolutely awful at the moment. But nonetheless, actually Monica Camilleri and her new team, Whiplash Motorsport, fantastic to see her decide to do that, because she's been a real bit of a standout for me in the GT3 Champs. Not necessarily the best results in the world, but just a standout, great driver she is. Of course, she runs her own little YouTube channel there as well, so it's a natural position, I think, for her to step up into the leadership position. And of course, at the moment, on board with the Whiplash Motorsport car, they're doing very well. And, well, commentators curse a little bit there, unfortunately, and Gren's a little bit wide, but manages to hold on to it. Matthew Joynson has not let Neil get away at all. In fact, I think that gap has actually closed up over the last few laps, so maybe the Ford Mustang here of the Whiplash Motorsports crew is maybe starting to suffer a little bit on tyres. You're right about seeing Robertson go into the pits. You know, when you're that far back, nothing to really lose at this stage. You might as well slap on a new set of tyres and go for a little bit of fuel if you absolutely have to. But up the top here, none of these drivers will be pit stopping this race. You'll only see one pit stop in the next race, which is a 40-minute race, 26 laps here. So yeah, good job by the top three at the moment. And yeah, looking down a little bit, of course, we've got the Colin Racing car as well, and then Mash Spud. So Old Wakey is a person I recognise from other areas that I drive and commentate on, and GT7, namely the Sector 1 League, where a lot of those teams that you just mentioned before, Hoon Corp, CP Motorsports, and all that sort of stuff, a lot of them actually do a lot of racing in those other leagues as well. So that's why I recognise so many of the other names. Of the names that I don't recognise from MotorMotion E-Series, I recognise them from Sector 1, but all good people, all good teams, and really good to see MotorMotion E-Series, you know, getting up to the point where they're able to sign up and get these really, really top-tier teams on board, because it is, you know, just shows you the level of popularity. People want supercars. They want what MotorMotion E-Series has to offer. And, you know, you may have done GT3 Champs, we've done TCR Cup, and the level of driving and racing and that's been absolutely exceptional. So to see that continue here in the Supercar Series and probably become the pinnacle of MotorMotion E-Series, which I'm sure it has been in the past, is really, really cool to see.
Well, you know what the reason is because drivers just want a challenge. You know, everyone drives around. We all know, we've always seen a lot of leagues go for like GT3 racing, GT4 racing. You know, you get all those standard kind of races, and you see them around in all forms of league racing. But here with Shawfire Supercars, they are. Everyone has to remember, they are road cars and not actual race specified cars. So everyone's like, you're putting on body parts, you're winding the car up, you've got very limited downforce, you've got a very tailored car. People just want a challenge, and I believe that's definitely what MotorMotion have really brought this year in 2023 with its first season being very successful in its first outing. with the Gen 3 alike look like supercars. Series season 2, you know, we've got 3, and this is actually a first time for MotorMotion. We've actually got 3 lobbies for the Shawfire supercars. We had the Brock lobby a couple of weeks ago. We're now bringing you the Johnson lobby, and hopefully potentially we'll be bringing you the Richards lobby. And obviously all respected names in the real world of supercars. Brock as in the mention of Peter Brock. Johnson is in the legendary Dick Johnson. And then we have the Richards lobby, and also in regards to the name of the legendary Kiwi in Jim Richards. So it's great to see some familiarity and some different names, and it's great to see, you know, people carrying over from GT3 to Shawfire supercars. We can see, you know, drivers from TCR coming over to the supercars. You know, as I said, just people want a challenge, and you know, and the supercars is doing that.
Correct. That's right, mate. Yeah. Just a little quick note. I think your microphone might have just dropped off in a little bit of volume, just FYI. But nonetheless, we will continue. I'm trying to modify audio settings at the same time as doing the broadcasting. This is becoming a bit of a juggling act, but nonetheless, we are on the last lap of this 13-lap race. So for the last time, Neil will take us through the chicane and round towards turn 13 and 14. The sweeping right-hander that has been absolutely killing tyres at this circuit. So those left-hand tyres take an absolute beating as they throw these heavy cars into the final corner. But it will be Neil for Whiplash Motorsport. Neil will take P1 in race 1, followed by an excellent performance out here by Matthew Johnson for Juiced Motorsport, and then third place it will be Jeremy Crow for Colin Racing Team, followed by Old Wakey, and that's Nathan Wakefield from Mash Spuds Racing.
Absolutely. So it's great to see. It's as we see the Ford Mustang 1-2 for the first time in any forms of lobbies. So it's actually great to see that Mustang up towards the pecking order in the Johnson lobby, where it was all dominated by the Camaros in the Brock lobby. But it's great to see some Ford Mustangs up there. I have a bit of a soft spot for that Mustang after the season 1 performances that we had at MSR, but it's great to see them up there. As you see the rest of the field rounding up, we have Samson and P7 for Diffusion Race Engineering, Matt Kuchar back again for Black Rose Racing in 8th, and then Troy Britnell inside the top 10. So that's a great recovery drive there. That's a great solid performance for Hoon Corp Racing. And then we just see right in the background, we have Dylan Scarborough and Vandersen battling it out. Oh, as we see Vandersen just drifting through the last quarter, trying to find some sort of speed out of his CP car. Doesn't get it, unfortunately. He finishes in 12th. Robinson in 13th, and a very unfortunate end for Di Mario in 14th place after he was in 5th place on lap 7, and unfortunately that mistake that he made just dropped him well down the order, and that's not the race that Hazeldean Hazeldean Automotive Racing wanted to see from DP Mario. But a lot of work to do for that team, and it is Whiplash Motorsport taking the bragging rights in race 1.
Correct. So on the screen right now, your race 1 results: 13 laps at Dragontrail Reverse Circuit. And yeah, great little race to behold. The top 4 were pretty spread out by the end, but we had some good battles down the middle of the pack, and a few drivers who dropped to the back of the pack that probably would have been part of the action up there in the mid to top field of the race, in the likes of DP Mario, Dean van der Zandt, and Dylan Scarborough, who were all right at the top. Unfortunately, just fell down due to some unforced mistakes there out there on track. Maybe still getting a little bit used to the way that these cars drive, but I'm sure they've been out on track plenty of time, getting themselves familiar with what's going out. So overall, these are your standings as it is. Of course, it is 100 points per race win here. It's a lot of points to be taking. So they'll all be stoked with that. And of course, the Whiplash Motorsport team, they'll be the most stoked out of all of them. 100 points going to Nielsen in the Johnson lobby.
Yeah, absolutely. And after Monica's performances in the Brock lobby, it's great to see that Whiplash is really racking in those points. So full 100 goes to Nielsen's name. But yeah, you know, as you said, with Scarborough, Van der Zandt, and Mario, these guys are still familiar with these cars. So unfortunately, just with it's not their first rodeo here in the Shawfire Supercar, so they've got a lot of work to do to get their cars up towards the pecking order and inside the top 8. But as we take a bit of a quick break, we will be getting ourselves ready for race 2 very shortly. But that was an absolutely fantastic race. Great battles all around throughout the field between the top 3, especially. It was very close between the top 3 at the end there. I believe they were only covered by just under 2 seconds between that top 3. So great close racing between the Whiplash, Juice Motorsports, and Colin Racing Team drivers. And it's great to see just some good parity between the two manufacturers in the Ford Mustang GT350 and the Chevrolet Camaro SS, the 2016 spec.
Correct. And yes, so the next result here is going to be very interesting because the race 2 begins with a reverse grid. That means the people in last place for race 1 will be starting up the front of the group and the grid. So that is the likes of DP Mario, who will lead us away in P1. Richard Robinson will be in P2. Dean Van der Zandt P3. Dylan Scarborough P4. So some very fast guys up the top of the grid. Maybe going to be running away with this one a little bit. Of course, Nielsen will start at the back. Johnson will start in P13, Crow in P12, and Wakefield will be in P11. So there will be some very, very interesting fights around here. I'm very much looking forward to this one. Of course, we've got 26 laps ahead. You do need to use a mandatory tyre here. Nick, you can correct me on this because I've got multiple bits of information that are a little bit conflicting. I think it's medium tyres are in fact mandatory today. Cool.
Medium tyres are mandatory, but you will be seeing a lot of drivers going for a bit of an alternate strategy. So some may go on the harder compound, the compulsory compound, run that for potentially 13 to 14 laps, depending how good they are on their fuel, and then they're just going to go for a bit of a soft finish towards the end. Or you might even see the likes of, for example, Di Mario or Van der Zandt. They might even go on the soft tyres at the start. They might just want to cruise away and just, you know, build a gap. So then when they get onto the medium tyres towards the end, they will have a big enough gap that it could potentially land them victory. But we will see in race 2, hopefully we'll be able to get some telemetry and some data from the MotorMotion tech team, and we might be able to see who's on what tyres before he gets to that critical lap on lap 13. But I'm excited for this one. We've got, as you said, big names up front: Di Mario, Dean Van der Zandt, Dylan Scarborough. Definitely, and also I want to be keeping my eyes on Matt Kuchar for Black Rose Racing. As I said, he did come second in the Johnson Lobby in season 1, so he's got a lot to prove this season, and he needs to be getting himself up towards that front, up towards the top 5 and inside that podium positions if he can, and get Black Rose Racing some good points, because unfortunately their Brock driver in Morgan Davey was a no-show, and unfortunately they'll be hampered with team championship points.
Correct. Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to this a lot. And of course, you know, with the interest in 13 laps, we had that much interesting stuff to talk about and to comment on. And the racing was excellent as well. Now we're going to add strategy onto the top of this, and it's going to get very, very fiery. So, Nick, we're going to go down onto the grid. I hear that the cars are ready to go. The lights are about to go onto their positions, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this time, I think we'll let you take us away. So on grid we go for race 2.
So here we are, it is final race here, 26 laps here at Dragontrail Gardens. It is Mario and Robinson, Chevrolet versus Mustang, and we are underway. Green flag racing. We can see Robinson's had a bit of a poor start there. All the Mustangs, unfortunately, have had a poor start. They're going to go 3 wide into turn 1, and it is the Camaro of DP Mario leading the way for Hasseldine Motorsport up into P1. Then we're seeing the grid sort themselves out a little bit. We've got Dean Van der Zandt in second, Dylan Scarborough third, and then Chris White in 4th place, and Flighty Whitey, and Robinson goes from 2nd down to 5th place, and not the start that the Road Sig Racing boys wanted to have in Robinson, but we can see they're negotiating the never-ending left-hand corner for the first time for 26 laps. And we can see there all the cars are very well spread out, but we can see up ahead DP Mario just leading the way, leaving these cars do dust. I wonder if he's one of the drivers that is starting on the soft compound tyres. But we look down towards the back, we're seeing a bit of a cluster between some of the drivers in Birdman and Samson. So we can see there, Jeremy Crow has come from the back of the field, 3rd last, and he's up into P6, or we'll make that P7 after Troy Britnells makes that move. But what a start for the CRT team in Jeremy Crow, up into P7, but he's looking to make the move on Troy Britnell going into turns 10 and 11. Can he get that car out-braked, and can he get ahead of the Hooncorp driver? No, he doesn't. So but still, regardless, that is a great start there. Unfortunately, we saw there Troy Britnell in the background there really struggling to get that car down. We see a massive cluster with all the cars right behind there. We can see a couple of the MSR cars. Matthew Johnson getting himself all out of shape there. As we look down towards the pack there, we can see a few cars. Oh, I can see one in the background there. It's gone for a bit of a massive spin there. Well, we'll try and see if we can get some sort of action of who that was. We'll try and find out later on. As we can see Troy Britnell, and we can see as well a few other cars there. Kuchar was one of them. We can see Matthew Johnson's there. So Kuchar's gone for a massive spin. Something happened to him in turn 1, maybe a brake failure on Britnell's car. we can see there, Wakefield got caught up in all of that. Glenn Mee got caught up in all of that as well. What I'm hearing as well, what I'm hearing from the MSR camp, Wakefield has got no power in his car.
Oh dear. Yeah, that is a disaster because he's right at the back of the pack now, and yeah, oh, it looks like he's struggling so much to get that thing turned in. So he's obviously carrying some damage. Maybe that big incident down the pit straight is what he was involved in. Big accident there, and a big bit of punting as well at the second part of turn 1. But fastest sector times being set now by Mario. He's got the fastest lap on board at the moment, and looking very strong. I've seen him do this before. You give him any shot with any bit of clean air, and he is right out there. He knows how to put a good quick lap in. And for Hasseltine Automotive at the moment, holding onto a very good P1. But you're right, we will look at some tyre information in about a lap or so. We'll bring up all the telemetry, is what we've been told. And DP Mario may well, as you said, be on the faster compound of tyres. Behind them, Dean van der Zaan, followed by Chris White, who's had a brilliant start at the moment, holding onto the back of Dean van der Zaan, which is a difficult thing to do, I'm going to be honest with you. But Dean has gone wide. He's gone very deep. Oh, and it's going to bring Chris White all the way through for P2. And Dean's they're going to go side by side into the long, never-ending left-hand corner.
Yeah, but watch out for White's straight line speed. But is he going to get that Camaro ahead? No, he does the right thing. Tucks in behind that 152 CP Motorsports, Dean van der Zaan entry there. So I think Dean was a little bit too overconfident with his brakes there. I did say early in the broadcast, the Mustang has very good braking performances, but I think van der Zaan just took a little bit too much incentive there and just went a little bit too deep. Just missed his braking marker by probably, I would say, at least 10, 20 meters. So not the way that he wanted to do, but he still holds on to P2. And White right behind in P3. We can see, and we can also see Robinson's come back up through the field up into P4 after starting P2. So a bit of a poor first lap, but he's got his head down. He's got a clear air. He's managed to pass a few cars, and he's up into P4. But I'm still very shocked as well with Jeremy Crow in 5th place. That is a great start. And the winner of race 1 in Nielsen is up into P8. So great start by those two that were on the podium in race 1. And as we can also see ahead there, look at the performances that the Camaro has through some of the infield sections. It's all about the setups. It's all about the tuning. You know, who's got great data, who's got a good base tune, who can tune the car up very nicely through the slow sections, the fast sections. Unfortunately, we saw there with White and going through turn 14 really understeered. So that 73 grid line racing, who's also, but actually very interesting enough, it's actually it's just gone a little bit wide there. Oh, he's got contact with Robinson there, unfortunately. For Robinson's end, he had nowhere to go there, so I don't blame Robinson on that whatsoever. We saw Chris White run wide in turn 1, turn 2, but I think Robinson is just going to give that position back. No, he's actually just let Crow go through. So I don't think that was a Robinson incident, unfortunately. I believe that was White just going deep into the corner, turn 1, turn 2, and unfortunately just for Robinson just had nowhere to go. So that's White down to P8, unfortunately, after showing some good performances in those early laps.
Correct. Troy Britnell here is in the bit of a battle pack as well, with Matthew Joynson ahead in P9, and then Alexander right behind him, who's already sliding around the track. You can hear the screeching of the tyres in the background. It is Bruce the Shark, Matt Kutscher, involved in an early incident in this race. And wow, I mean, Crow, this is a mega drive at the moment. He's gone from basically second to last to third in the space of 4 laps, and I think it might be time to pull up a bit of telemetry and have a little look. Yes, I'm being told that is what's being done at the moment. Let's go through the grid, Nick. In fact, take us through the grid, if you don't mind, for the MotorMotion E-Series Shawfire Supercars lap information or telemetry information. We'll have to come up with a good name for that at some point. But take us through and give us an idea of who's on what.
Yeah, just like I predicted, and as we all predicted in those early laps, and with the start as well, DP Mario is on the soft tyre, so he's doing the straight. He's trying to go for the fast strategy, just get out of here, run away, don't get caught up in any incidents, and just pull the gap over the likes of Dean van der Zaan, who's in P2, is running the medium tyres, so he's running the conservative strategy. But I will say his lap times are pretty good there. That last lap was a 1 minute 32.8, with the fastest lap with a 1 minute 32.1, so he's not too far off the data of the lap times that is being set by Mario in first place. Then we look down to Crow in third place after what was starting third last and up into P3 already on lap 5. He's running the medium tyres, so great strategy for the man in CRT Colin Racing Team. and then Aiden Sampson on the medium tyres as well. So far, second through to fourth are running the mediums, and it's certainly proving to be looking like the good strategy for the Johnson Lobby drivers. As we look down to Chris White, he's running the soft tyres, so actually very interesting. So running the soft tyres, I would have thought he would have been right up there with Di Mario, but unfortunately that mistake that he had on the previous lap with Robinson has really hampered his progress, and that's not going to be the strategy that he wants. Nielsen from last P6, great solid drive there by the Whiplash Motorsport driver. He's running on the medium tyres and running some very good lap times as well. Dylan Scarborough carrying some damage there, so front splitter and front ride suspension damage for the Scarborough Motorsport team. In car 22 running the medium tyres, but I don't think he'll want to come into the pit lane. Johnson as well, running some front splitter damage as well. So I wonder if a couple of the teammates got together, or maybe they both went off at the same corner. I'm not 100% sure. We'll find out off the broadcast and see what happens. Then Richard Robinson coming into the pit lane now, trying to fix up that damage. So that's an interesting tactic. We saw Scarborough and we saw Johnson have some damage, but they're still carrying on there. So very interesting to see what the motive is for Richard Robinson to come into the pit lane. To me personally, I would have just definitely stuck it out and just try and run those laps and just get rid of those tyres, because unfortunately in Robinson's case, he'll be looking to do a two-stop, unfortunately, on his end of things. And then we have Alexander in P9. I believe he was running on the medium tyres, yes, but with carrying a lot of damage. Just running wide on the never-ending long left-hander, and just carrying all kinds of damage. That car is flashing red. He's getting all the signals from his team to tell him to stay out, just keep that car on the track, just run the fuel down, and we'll come fix your car up. But unfortunately for Alexander's case, he's not liking that Me Cougar 96 at all. And we can see that Glenn Mead's going for an inside move there on the soft tyres, as you expect, outbraking the Me Cougar car. But we'll probably see that Me Cougar car with its straight line performances, damage and all, just go past that car. I mean, that's incredible. You got damage all over the car and you're still able to get some straight line speed, but he does the right thing. He can't fight for it because he's got a very wounded car. Slots into P10. And unfortunately for that Me Cougar team's got a lot of work to do in the pit lane. And then we have Troy Britnell for Hooncorp, car 55, running on the medium tyres. The Hooncorp's debut running the alternate strategy. Matt Kutcher with some rear damage on his car after being caught up in that lap 2 incident in turn 1. I believe he got caught up with a few drivers, and that is his rear end. Definitely wounded for sure. And Robertson, who just came out of the pit lane going from soft to medium tyres for Road 6 Racing, unfortunately picking up a 3-second penalty on his end there, so definitely crossed the white line there. And unfortunately for the MSR driver, car number 6, who got engine damage after all of that mess on lap 1, is running on the soft tyres, still running on the soft tyres, didn't change tyres there, just got the engine fixed, got the car fixed up, and he's out on his merry way running on the softs. But unfortunately that is his run. Over and out, unfortunately. It is 26 laps. We're about 20 laps to go until the end of this race. And unfortunately being lapped by Di Mario, who's running a very similar strategy.
Yeah, well, here's the new challenge for Mr. Old Wakey here for MSR. It's stay ahead of the leader as long as possible without being called up by the stewards about not letting someone pass on a blue flag. At the moment, he seems to have pretty good pace. Obviously, they're on equal tyres, and the tyres for DP Mario starting to fall off a bit of a cliff there for the Hasseldean Automotive cars. So, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. But, as you said before, if you can make them last 13 laps in the sprint race earlier on, you can almost certainly make them last 13 laps here. But you may, I don't know, we saw a mix of strategies in the Brock lobby a couple of weeks ago. Some people deciding to go a little bit less time on the softs, some people trying to push them even further, and only a few were really looking at the 13-lap strategy, which was very, very interesting. Is there a particular way of thinking about that is better than the others? I imagine being on the mediums, and we saw this proved by Dean van der Zart setting very similar lap times to DP Mario and running on the medium tyre. It is entirely possible to get some good lap time in there with the medium. So if you can run longer with the medium and deal with a little bit less of that, lack of grip that comes with the soft tyre in the latter half of the stint, is it worth running the medium for a little bit longer, or is the constraint always going to be fuel here?
Yeah, I have a feeling it is very interesting because the Ford Mustang definitely is looking after his tyres. And we see there with DP Mario, he's got basically no tyres at all, because you could just see he's just going full send. He just wants to get that gap over Van der Zandt. But if we look back towards Birdman, for example, you know, Van der Zandt and Crow are running on the same tires, but we saw with the CP car, they actually have a bit of better tire wear, and I believe that from what I heard from what we call it, the MotorMotion Balance of Performance team, they are saying that the Mustang is actually a lot better on its tires than it is with the Camaro, and that's because this season, in season 2, the Camaro this year is not running the rear diffuser for the first time. So last year in season 1, they were running the rear diffuser, so it definitely helped with tire preservation on that Camaro. But unfortunately now that rear diffuser has been taken off the Camaro SS, and it's giving drivers a little bit of a struggle when it comes to tire preservation, as we see Chris White going for a full send, but with a switchback move there, Sam's have done a nice job to get that P4 back off Chris White. And we can see there Heathen NZ is looking up into P6, doing a very good job from last to P6. That's still a solid drive there. But you can see on his tyres as well, he's running on the medium tyres. We saw Samson on the medium tyres, and he was pretty much roughly about 40-50% on tyre wear, while we see Nielsen and Van der Zandt, they've basically got no tyre wear. So if they can save fuel, and if they can really extend that stint out, we're looking at about 14 laps potentially on this medium stint, and then run a 12-lap sprint on the soft compound. But as we saw in that first race, everyone was basically on those soft tires. So, you know, I wouldn't go past it just going for a half and half. It's just really dependent on the fuel numbers and how everyone is for fuel, and whether they set their cars up for fuel saving or for tire saving.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into the background. I have no envy at all of the balance of performance of team. Try to figure out all the different combinations the team can work with, all the different settings and the tuning of these cars. It does get very complicated very quickly. And as you said, I mean, most of doing setups, most of tuning cars is about compromise. What are you gaining for what are you losing? That's where the smarts come in for the engineers. It's where they've got to figure out what kind of situation they want to put their drivers in. How do the drivers want to navigate this kind of course, this circuit? Wide again goes Aiden Sampson for Diffusion Race Engineering. That's going to let Chris White come all the way through and take P4 there. So doing good. There's a good little battle happening between these chaps, but
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe the little bit of a drop-off in tyres happening for Aiden Sampson. I believe he's running the bit less grip on the mediums. They're all running mediums, these guys, but the grip level here for Aiden Sampson, he's using a lot more in the car at the moment, whether that's due to setup. I know that, in fact, if we go back, and the team luckily are doing this, look at the rake on the Diffusion Race Engineering Camaro. It's really, really extreme.
Yeah, you may as well just put stilts on and throw a costume on it and throw it in the circus, I guess, for Samson's case for Diffusion Race Engineering. But I will say, there are a lot of setups. You could definitely see with the Camaro, because the rear diffuser has been taken off that car, they are starting to, the setups for this Camaro, especially for me for the first time running in the MSR 32 Camaro this season. It has been a bit of a challenge setting these car up compared to what the Mustang is, because if you look at the Mustang, that car is really low to the ground. So you can see the Whiplash Motorsport entry, a little bit of rake on the rear ends, but not to the extent that we're seeing with the Camaro, especially for Aiden Sampson's case. So with a higher rake, yes, it can give you a little bit more top end speed. It can really help get that car down on the power a little bit earlier, but also the problem with that is that you really use those tires and you really wear them out throughout the corner. So as we can see here, Nielsen's going for an inside boost still there, so if they give each other some racing room, bit of contact made there, pushing Sampson a bit wide, and we'll see Nielsen take that P3 away. Yes, he does. Will Sampson come back and with that straight line speed? No, he doesn't. So he drops down to P6. But I will say as well, White is on the soft tyres and Sampson is running on the medium tyres.
Oh, yes. So sorry, that's my mistake. Yes.
so we can see there, we're on lap 11 of 12. We have Chris White on the soft tyres. I want to look back on DP Mario's car because he's also on the soft compound tyres as well. What is his tyre like? He's got nothing left at all. So this is just a repeat of what we saw in the Brock lobby with yours truly. He's definitely the compound of soft tyres was absolutely shocking, and I feel for DP Mario because, mate, I've been in that situation before, and it is not fun not having a front left tire. So I believe as well with Mario's case, I believe he's also on the controller, not because looking at his tires that he's on that, but I believe as well, just in general, I believe he is on the controller. So a lot of work to do, and he's come in quite early here, lap 11 of 26. So very interesting strategy for the Hasseldean Motorsport, and we can see Van der Zandt still punching out some good lap times. That was his personal best, a 1 minute 32.4, the fastest lap with Glenn Mead on a 131.9 on soft tires. So that CP car, any compound that you put on that car is working wonders, and Dean Van der Zandt is doing a stellar job to have that car now leading the race on lap 12 for 26.
Yeah, I love to see the difference with the rear diffusers because, you know, the rear diffuser is obviously one of the most useful bit of kit in terms of getting the power down from a car with this much torque, with this much energy coming through that V8 engine. Being able to have the rear diffuser just sort of stuck the car into the ground and force the weight onto the rear tires really allows you to get a lot more traction and get away quickly on the corners, which is, you know, it's quite key. But at the same time, that means you've got a lot more drag on the car. So more drag equals less top speed, and, you know, it can have a bit of a compromising effect in some ways. But it was a nice little battle we saw there just before between CP and the others. And yeah, really interesting to see. But that's where this balance of performance team comes in, and they've worked so hard to make sure that these cars have a fair chance of fighting against each other. And one thing that I love to see, and this is absolutely one of my favorite things in motorsport to see, is when you've got two cars with a circuit that is sort of balanced in terms of excuse me, top speed requirements versus cornering requirements, and then to see the cars with, you know, a little less drag doing really, really well in the straights and pulling away, and then seeing the cars with more downforce pull it back in the tighter parts of the circuit, and you just don't know what it's going to come down to. What it comes down to is driver skill and racecraft, and how familiar you are with the car and how much fuel you can save. The strategy becomes much more important as well. So to see this, you know, one of the great skills in racecraft is to know where the driver you're fighting, where their weaknesses are, where your strengths are, and then to maximize and take advantage of those. So, you know, you see the smart Ford Mustang drivers, they'll often try and get it done in these tighter parts of the circuit, whereas the Camos can really just kind of wait it out to the back straight and the main pit straight and just absolutely send it, and they've got less downforce and less drag to deal with, so the cars are inevitably going to go faster. So it's down to the Mustang drivers to get good exits, better exits, out of those longer corners, which is difficult to do here. And yeah, then it's down to the Camaro drivers to keep it really clean and tidy and hold the apex through the intersection.
Absolutely right. So we're on lap 13 of 26. We've just crossed over the halfway mark. So this is definitely the critical lap for drivers that are wishing to come into the pit lane right now on those soft tires to get onto those medium tires and vice versa. As we see there, looks like Dylan Scarborough's just come out of the pit lane. He's dropped behind Wakefield in 13th place. So he's got, if you could see his tires, he's actually got some good tire life there. But I believe as well, he came into the pit lane, just the same corner that he made a mistake on lap 1. That's where he got his engine damage on that Armco there. Really struggled, as we could see there, just pulling back.
I think he might have served a penalty there.
No, he didn't serve a penalty. I think he just gave way to Scarborough because he knows he's just a little bit quicker and he's got fresher compounds. He must have just seen him come out of that pit lane and just thought, you know what, I'm not going to battle this hard with you. But again, just something looks like, yeah, you can see there he's indicating to Scarborough just giving way to him and just telling him, hey mate, you know, I've just seen you come out of the pit lane and over you go, pass.
Indicating in the wrong direction, I will say, but I think Dylan Scarborough got the message.
Yeah, absolutely. As I saw up on the leaderboard, we did see Jeremy Crow for Colin Racing Team come into the pit lane, we're also seeing Van der Zandt still staying out. So he's running the strategy of one truly Andrew Scott for me, Cougar Driver Development, ran in the Brock lobby. He went for an extra lap, but actually I did get some intel, an inside scoop there. That was not intentional for Andrew Scott, because what happened in the Brock lobby was because I was on the inside going into turn 14 and ready to go into the pit lane. Andrew Scott was just trying to I want to come into the pit lane too. Just don't block me off. And then he saw the white line. No. He thought, I have to go for an extra lap, unfortunately. So he went for the extra lap. So he told me he was running fuel mix 6 throughout the whole back section, throughout the whole sector 2, sector 3. So he had no chance at all running it on fuel mix 1. So, but you know, running it on a 14 lap stint is pretty brave. And we are seeing the likes of Van der Zandt come in, and now he has come into the pit lane. And we're also going to see Nielsen come into the pit lane and Peaches. A very good drive here for the Whiplash Motorsport entry in car number 14, doing a really good job there, getting from last up into P2 in this sequence of pit stops. Now we have DP Mario coming onto the pit straight now. So as we predicted, coming in nice and early, getting that fueling, getting off those soft tires on the medium compound, retakes the lead on lap 15 of 26, but he's going to have some fast Mustangs behind him in Dean van der Zandt and Heath Nielsen in third place.
Yeah, and just looking at his fuel, as we suspected earlier on, he is going to be two-stopping because you are not taking that amount of fuel to the end of this race. He pitted on lap 11, so it was more of a splash and dash. Yeah,
I didn't see that actually. Good picking up there. I thought he actually came in for a bit of fuel, but interesting. So I think what he's trying to do is he's just trying to run this medium compound, get the compulsory tire out of the way, and have a fast car towards the end there. But unfortunately, that strategy is not going to really work out because you've got Dean van der Zandt, who is now on the soft tires. It will take him a few corners to warm up those tires, but you'll see that delta come down between them very quickly. DP Mario will have to sit in the pit a little bit longer because he has to take some fuel on. Van der Zandt's fueled right to the end there. He's running that 14-12 strategy, so that's a very good strategy call there by the Mustang driver and CP Motorsports as well. Right behind there, Jeremy Crow, who tried to do an undercut on Van der Zandt. Unfortunately, didn't get the undercut on Van der Zandt, but he definitely got an undercut on Nielsen. So this is a very solid drive here by Jeremy Crow for Colin Racing Team. Going from third last to P3, or potentially could be P2 once Mario comes into the pit lane. And that is a very solid drive there from the back of the grid.
Very impressive, and it will pick him up a lot of points because he did finish way up the grid as well. I think P3 as well. I think he might have finished in the previous race. So yeah, he's going to have a whole bunch of points there for his team, and that'll be a good way to start off your race weekend with the Colin Racing Team. And I have to admit, this is one of my favorite liveries as well. I mean, I'm a bit obsessed with blue. I know we haven't made any comments about the liveries, but so I'll stick it back in the bottle, but this is definitely one of my favorites. And you're right, with DP Mario, I've seen him run this strategy before on traditionally one-stop races. He does like to two-stop and just absolutely full send. So it's a bit of a DP Mario kind of style thing that he does like to do, which is just full send as much as possible.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, we'll see if it works out for him this time. I've overtaken him a couple of races where he's done that, and it hasn't worked out. So I've been on the positive side of that for me, and the negative side of that for DP Mario. But he's a very, very fast guy. Absolutely deserving of the drive here with Hasseldean Automotive, and they'll be happy to have him on board, a driver with such experience on the grid. Purple in the first sector there does go Crow. He's doing very, very well, putting in the lap times he needs to. He's kind of sticking to the back of Dean van der Zandt at the moment, and he'll need to continue doing that. Looking down, we've got Bruce the Shark and Chris White, who's under a lot of pressure from Neil and Aiden Sampson. So here's the battle at the moment between these three going at it for the P5 position. So Neil maybe just slipped down the order a bit after that pit stop. He'll be on, I believe, the soft tire now. Yes, he is. He's just come out of the pits about a lap ago. And so it's mediums at the front for Chris White with two soft runners behind him in Neil and Sampson. And there is our race leader, DP Mario, coming into the pits. He'll be switching on to, I believe, the soft tire for 10 laps and a bit of fuel because he's on 1%. Smell of an oily rag.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just got intel from Whiplash Motorsport. Just got a text from their team manager in Monica Camilleri. They did say there was a wheel nut, loose wheel nut on the pit lanes, and they had to run onto the pit lane just to recover it and put it back on the tires. So that's probably why he's a little bit well down the order in P6 there. He was right up there in P2. I believe he was sitting P5, P4 before the pit lane. Oh, so we see Sampson just getting that little bit of dirty air from the two cars ahead of him, just right down the order, unfortunately. So yeah, unfortunately for him, he got a bit of a loose wheel nut there, and there is DP Mario. So this has come out very nicely there, just almost hits White's off the circuit there. So he's down into P6. So this is not too bad in Mario's case. He's still holding on for a potential P4 in this race. But unfortunately, for the case of getting onto the podium, Glenn Mead is just a little bit too far ahead for now. We're on lap 17 of 26, so there's still a lot of racing to go. 9.5 laps to go until the end of this race. And yeah, but this is not too bad strategy here for DP Mario. He did put on less fuel, of course. Running that alternate strategy, you do get the chance and the option to run less fuel and sit less time in the pit lane. But that has actually proved very nicely there for DP Mario's case, and unfortunately for Whiplash Motorsport, with that loose wheel nut in the pit lane, has hampered Nielsen's progress up towards the front of the field.
Critical for DP Mario to be in front of Heathen, sorry, that's Neil and Samson, because they're both running the racing softs. So he's now the man with the freshest racing softs on the tarmac and chasing after Chris White, who's actually on the mediums. So this should be, I mean, in all, technical comparisons, should be a pretty easy overtake for DP Mario and Chris White. But Chris White is doing a brilliant job at the moment. We're going to get an onboard with him. And looking a little bit back in his rear vision mirror to see the difference in speed here. But White doing a great job to hold off these three. There will be a bit of a slipstream there for Neil down the straight, but we all know what that Camaro of DP Mario is going to be doing. It's going to be running away with it and see if there's anything it can do under braking. No, there's not. Wide, though, goes Chris White. This is going to really open up the opportunity for DP Mario, who gets a little bit squiggly on the exit. So this strategy from DP Mario, it might be good enough to secure fourth. Of course, he did start in P1 in this race. Just got to remind ourselves of that because of the reverse grid. So technically speaking, even if he gets fourth place, he has lost those 4 positions or 3 positions in this race already. And whether or not this works out for him, we will see. But he does get to go absolutely full send for the rest of this race. There is no conservative driving in Mario's strategy at all at the end of this race.
Definitely not, and he needs to get past White as quickly as he can if he wants to have any chance of getting on the podium with Glenn Mead just up the road going onto that back straight. So Mario has at least potentially another lap just to try and get past him. As we can see, that runs a bit wide, giving Neil the opportunity to try and go for the inside move, but doesn't. But look at those 4 cars battling for P4. This is absolutely some great racing here between the battle for 4th players. But DP Mario coming out of the pit lane, freshest tyres off the lot, as you said. White just takes that curb a little bit wrong, runs wide again. That's going to open up Mario an opportunity to try and go for a bit of a shallower line and try and get that power down as quickly as we can. And just coming onto turn 14 for the 18th time and about to start the 19th lap. It is still Mario right behind it, but as I said, he needs to get past that Camaro drive as quickly as he can because he's got Heathen right behind there, and that Mustang's capabilities is braking late.
Oh.
DP Mario's got some straight line speed. He brakes, outbrakes himself. Can he pull it up? He doesn't. Will Heathen go for a move and get himself up into P4? He does initially. Oh, he just loses out. Unfortunately, he just gets caught up in all of that cluster. That drops him well down to P7, running up. He almost got up into P4. That would have been a spectacular move to get 2 cars in 1 corner, but unfortunately on his end drops down to P7. DP Mario is about to lose out to Samson. He does. Samson just runs wide, and they're still going side by side on the never-ending left-hander. This is some great racing, great battling, but this is opening up White's chance to run away and pull away from these guys there. Kicks up a bit of dirt there, loses time, loses track position. Doesn't lose track position, rather. He still holds on to P4, so some great action here in the midfield pack. Mario's going for it. He's going for the inside move. Can he hold on to it? Can he go for the shallow line? Can he get the power down? That soft tyre versus medium compound.
Oh,
Mario's
gone
up into P4, and Samson has gone escapading down the order there. Just too much power. Not able to do what DP Mario can do, and drops well outside of the top 10. So that's very unfortunate for Samson. But in Mario's case, up into P4, but what damage has that done to his tyres, and what damage has that done to give him a chance for P3? We'll find out very soon.
And all of this fighting is playing into the hands of one juiced motorsport driver. It's Joinson. Joinson staring through the crack in the wall right now and going, hey, there's a little battle going on there. I think I might get involved in this. So he's right on the back now of Neil and Chris White, and I think he's running the racing softs. Yes, he is. So he will be fast at the end of this race and putting in some good, consistent lap times. A 31.8. His previous lap, the fastest lap at the moment, sits with our race leader, and that is Dean van der Zandt. I'm at 9.9548. Let's save the whole thing, why not? With a 1 minute 31.262. So great lap time there from him, but Joinson looking very, very fast behind Neil, our previous race winner. Chris White is suffering a little bit. I think those medium tyres are starting to do him a little bit of a disservice now, because these soft tyres are coming into their own, I think.
Yeah, probably. I think the Gridline Racing / Rushfire collaboration. They didn't do too much running on the medium tires, unfortunately. So I believe they had a bit of a malfunction throughout their practice sessions, where unfortunately for Chris White's case, he couldn't actually get onto the plane. So unfortunately, Qantas not doing a good job for Gridline Racing. Actually, funny enough, it was Andrew Scott's first team in Gridline Racing that he joined in E-Series racing. So unfortunately, not doing them many favors, giving Chris White a bit of a flight delay to get into Croatia, and yeah, he just hasn't had enough time to run on those medium tires, so he's really struggling there. You can see there DP Mario on the soft tires just running away with it. As predicted, we could see Joyce has moved up a position over Heathen in 7th place, and he just gets that power down and sit magnificently. Wow. What a performance of power that he just managed to get that car planted on the ground there. And up into P5 goes Matthew Joynson. The battle that was for P1 and P2 in race 1. Heathen just still sitting behind Chris White. So this is the view, unfortunately, that Heathen has had throughout all of race 2, and is not able to get past Chris White.
Brilliant racing, absolutely brilliant racing. That was incredible power control of the car for the Juice Motorsport driver of Matthew Joynson. Just threw it up the inside, held his line, used all the grip that was available to him, and got the power down on the road, which is just unfortunate for Chris White, who goes a little bit squiggly there, just couldn't do the same. Ran a little bit wide, and yeah, one thing here with the lack of grip that you already have, you're dealing with, if you're out there on the marbles, you're going to find yourself with even less grip. It's not fun on the outside of the circuit. Got to stick it on the black stuff where the rubber is being laid down. Really important with these cars. Something that I believe in real supercars in real life, something that you're absolutely focused on. You've got to be finding where that rubber has been put down, especially at tracks like Bathurst, down towards the Chase, where that braking zone there, you can't do it at 150 meters if you're not on the tarmac, on the black stuff, on the rubber.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's a very well familiar track here, just west of Melbourne in Victoria. It's Winton Raceway. It's a very narrow track, pretty much essentially a one-liner, but the marbles, you can't really run the wide lines around that circuit because they're the marbles that you pick up there throughout the whole 3 kilometer circuit. It picks up a lot of there is a lot of excess marble around the outside, and you can't run side by side there. So with all these cars here, I would say Dragontrail Gardens just kind of reminds me a little bit of Winton. Obviously, it's a little bit longer than Winton, but I would say as well, it is basically a one-liner. You do get a few chances to make some opportunities for overtaking, but again, it's just very narrow, it's very one-liner, and it's just, yeah, unfortunately, you're not able to make moves unless you have to force to make a move there. As we see, looks like both drivers, and Dylan Scarborough and Wakefield, have come into the pit lane again, as we can see down the order there.
Spun, DP Mario's gone.
Oh, wow. So unfortunately, we don't have a replay camera for that, unfortunately. But DP Mario goes from 4th to P6. Thankfully for him, it's only at P6. Heathen has actually gone past Chris White, so he's up into P5. But that's DP Mario's strategy just down the drain, unfortunately. So the strategy that could have potentially worked for him and try to get towards the back end of Glen Mead in Big Bruce's Shark, unfortunately has come to a riveting blow with that 360 spin. And now, unfortunately, Chris White's coming under pressure from the Cooke driver, and Alexander going for the inside move, runs it a little bit deep there. So a bit of a switchback move for White. There's not much space to go for a bit of a switchback because it does narrow up so quickly. And along here, you run the car, too much power there, and you're on the grass on turn 12. So great move there for Alexander, but look at his tyres. He's got nothing left. He's going to be running on fumes over the next couple of laps, next 4 laps in that 96 Cooke. So a lot of drivers just, I would say a lot of drivers just pitting very early, I would say. Actually, a lot earlier than what we saw in the Brock lobby. Everyone was pitting around lap 13, lap 14. So probably in Alexander's case, probably had no choice. Maybe because he did get that damage. I do remember Alexander did get all that whole car damaged from the front to the rear. So I think he had no choice. Probably the team called him in early, get the car fixed as quickly as they can, and just run him on soft tires. So unfortunately for him, that's just his race, just down the order there in P7. But not a bad performance there if he's running down in P7 at the end of this race.
That's right. I mean, he'll be running on the smell of the tires exploding underneath him, the fire that it's going to create underneath the car and all 4 wheels. Because, yeah, that front left is dead in about a lap. and the others probably maybe 2-3 laps just, but he could be running on 3 dead tires by the end of this. So yes, the soft tires at the moment, even in that state, are faster than the mediums of Chris White, but for all intents and purposes, if you're running on 0 tires, you're not going to have any grip. So even a medium tire half-worn is going to be better than no soft tires at all. So I do expect Chris White to be able to hold on to the back of Alexander here. So hopefully it's not all for nothing for Alexander in the last 4 laps of this race. But Chris White has got a little bit of work to do to get back up. And just running through our grid, as it stands at the moment, we've got 3 laps to go. So take us through once again, maybe, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're about 2.5 laps to go until the end of this 26 lap thrilling race here that we are being able to broadcast here in the Johnson lobby. It is Dean van der Zandt for CP Motorsports, car 132, leading the way through throughout some very good fast pace there. Right behind there, Jeremy Crow, Taker Bowser. What a drive that he's put in from 3rd last to P2. That is a great drive for the CRT team. And then we have Glenn Mead for Mad Turtle Racing, also making their debut. As we saw them in the track race at TCR Cup, and now expanding their team into the Shawfire Supercars. So Glenn Mead, who is a leading member in that team in other league races, is doing very well. P3 for the man that we call Big Bruce the Shark, the Barry Whites, the New Zealand Barry Whites.
Brucey.
And then, yes, exactly. And then P4, Matthew Johnson for Juiced Motorsports, the / Scarborough Motorsports / Strike Race Tech team. There's a lot of companies and a lot of brands affiliated with that team, but Scarborough Motorsports have expanded their team to a 4-car team, and it has Matthew Johnson leading the way.
I've got a new name for Scarborough Motorsport. It's Acquisition Motorsport. That's what it is. There we go.
There we go.
There you go, Dylan. Dylan, if you're listening, there you go. There's your new team name.
Acquisition. That is fantastic there. And then right behind there is I just can't get it out of my head, unfortunately. Great work there. There we have Heathen in Nielsen in 5th place, doing a very nice job, winning race 1, unfortunately, and sitting inside the top 5 with his rivals in Johnson and Crow up ahead of him. And then DP Mario, unfortunately, that 2-stop strategy hasn't worked there for his case. I'm just running up as high as P4, but a spin late on in the race. They're just not getting any control on that. Camaro in 6th place. Chris White has finally got himself ahead of Alexander, because that's because Alexander has come into the pit lane.
Oh,
running
yes, he
down
has.
in 8th place, running in 9th place, and then we have Samson in P8 there, but something has gone wrong on his end there. He has not taken any tyres there, so maybe a late call by the driver himself, and the team saying, no, we're not ready there. We don't have any tyres. We've packed everything in the motorhome and the trucks there, where everything's gone, mate. You're on your own.
Yeah, I think Alexander's called in and said, hey, look, are you guys ready on the pit stop? We are checking. Something has gone very wrong there, because he's spent time in the pit lane and he's come out with no change in tyres and no change of maybe a splash of fuel. Maybe that's what he was worried about. That's probably it, actually, isn't it? Yeah.
I would say so, and I think the same with Samson, because he didn't come into the pit lane, but he's still carrying that damage there. So whether a damaged car will be better than a car than no tyres, we'll find out very soon. And then rounding up the top 10 is Richard Robertson, starting P2 at the start of this race. Just hasn't gone the right way for the Road Sig Racing team in that Ford Mustang. Very well presented livery in the Road Sig Racing. Those guys always produce some great liveries. And then we have Troy Britnell outside the top 10 in car 55. Just a bit of a quiet race for the Hooncorp driver. And unfortunately, there in 12th place, Matt Kuchar. What could have been for the man from Black Rose Racing? He had a very solid start, starting in P6, P7, and unfortunately, in his case, got caught up in that lap 2 incident and is running down in 12th place. Then we have Wakefield in 13th, and then Dylan Scarborough, as you said, Acquisition Motorsports, team leader in 14th place. But we are on the final lap here, ladies and gentlemen, as we cut back towards Dean van der Zandt. What a drive it has been for the man in car 132. We can't say much about him. We know he's a very good fuel whisperer. He's a very good tyre whisperer as well, so he gives Ando a bit of a run for his money. But it is the CP Ford Mustang that is about to take their first win in the Shawfire. They joined late of 2023, couldn't pick up a win, but they got some great drivers in, and in the hands of Dean van der Zandt in car 132, rounds the final corner, takes victory for CP Motorsports. Big congratulations to the man in car 132, CP's first victory in the Shawfire Supercars Series. Right behind him is Jeremy Crow. Well done to the Colin Racing team And Glenn Mead, on his first step on the podium, in his first outing in the Supercars, takes P3 and will spray the champagne with the other two. So well done to the podium runners.
Very impressive drive from all the top three, and looking a little bit further back in the grid, it is of course Matthew Joynson, who's got Neil all over him from Whiplash Motorsport, but the Juice Motorsport slash whatever etc. Juice Motorsport, they will take out P4. P5 will go to Neil. 0.5 second penalty picked up by DP Mario, who was trying desperately at the end there to recover from the mistake that he made. And P6, he'll have to be satisfied with that after finishing dead last on the first race. Chris White comes across the line with a well-executed strategy. Aiden Sampson for Diffusion Race Engineering with its rear wing up in the air. He likes it that way, though. Aiden Sampson comes across the line for Diffusion Race Engineering in P8. Then we've got Alexander for the Meat Cougar Driver Development Team, who have been doing very well in some of the series recently, notably the TCR Cup. Comes across the line, P9 and P10 for Roadsick Racing there. A little bit of ghosting going on at the end there. Thank you, game. Thank you very much. Of course, they're not in the control of the cars at this stage. Troy Britnell comes across the line with Matt Kutcher in tow. The last two there, Old Wakey and Dylan Scarborough of Acquisition Motorsport, round out the grid. So excellent job there from the chaps in the Johnson lobby. And on screen now, your full set of results. We're going to show you the standings as they are in just a moment as our team puts it all together. But Nick, highlights for you on what was a brilliant race. When you add that layer of strategy in there, it just changes the name of the game completely from those like DP Mario, who prefer the absolutely send it strategy and did very well, by unfortunate mistake that put him right at the back of the grid. Didn't maybe the strategy was a bit interesting from the likes of DP Mario, but everyone else seemed to execute things pretty well.
Yeah, definitely everyone managed to execute it very well. Unfortunately for Alexander for the Meat Cougar Drive Development Team, where his crew just packed everything away and he just came into the pit lane with no tyres and no pit crew waiting for him just to service him. But unfortunately, he nearly had three of his tyres actually fully explode there. Obviously, that front left exploded, and then we saw the front right and then the rear left of just really riding on the rims there. So the Meat Cougar driver just probably needs to unfortunately just has to have a bit of a debrief with his team and just say, what was going on there, team? Why did you not service me? So bit of work to do for Alexander, but unfortunately, I will say what a drive it has been for the top five. I would say especially Van der Zand putting on a class clinic there of managing tires, managing fuel, and that CP Motorsports Mustang has got the whole lot. So well done to the man in car 132. Jeremy Crow, I'm very impressed with so far. I haven't seen the name before, and he's definitely been putting on a show for Colin Racing Team, and that is actually. And yeah, go for it. Oh
no, you continue. Sorry, finish this off.
Yep. No, I was just going to say, because that was a P3 in race 1 and a P2 in race 2. So where Nielsen is finished and Joynson is finished, it will be a very close top 3 between those 3 drivers. And I would, if I had to put my money on it, I think Crow will just take the lead of the championship on my prediction, on my calculated numbers. We'll find out once the team at MotorMotion have put everything together. And Glenn Mead, a bit of a, I will always say Glenn Mead is a dark horse. Anywhere he goes, he always flies under the radar. You never see him until the end, and then you see his name up on the podium position thinking, how did you get there? That is absolutely incredible. Any forms of league racing I've done with the man, he always appears from out of nowhere, and I'm always questioning myself, where have you come from? So he's always... He is the shark. He is the Kiwi shark. There, he is our favourite Barry White impersonator in third place, and then Joynson rounding up in the Juice Motorsports in 4th, Nielsen in 5th place. And as you said, unfortunately, the full send in DP Mario's case hasn't worked on his end. So I wonder if he'll be able to take that data into the next round at Kyoto, where full send around that track won't really work for you. But we'll talk about that as we end the broadcast. And then we have White finishing off on those medium tyres inside 7th place, and Samson for Diffusion Race Engineering rounding up the top 8.
In chat, do let us know your driver of the day. Let us know your nomination. Vote for a driver. Here's the grid at the moment. Of course, the results are being compiled as we speak. In fact, I'm hearing in my ear that those are about to come up here in the commentary box. So, Nick, before we go into the final results, your nomination for driver of the day, please.
Well, I definitely would have given it to Van der Zandt, but unfortunately in that first race, he didn't have a very clean start. He jump-started race 1, and unfortunately his race went from bad to worse, finishing in P12 and then winning the race in P1. Just doesn't cut it out for me, unfortunately, after what was a great drive in race 2. I'm going to give it to Crow. I'm going to have to give it to Jeremy Crow for Colin Racing Team. Strong, consistent, a fast driver that Colin Racing Team have brought in to help that team make its debut for the first time here at MotorMotion E-Series for the Shawfire Supercars. Great drive, and just kept his nose clean. Came through the pack at the end of lap 2. He was running up as high as, I believe it was P6 or P5 at the end of lap 2, and that just shows a driver of his caliber running from the rear of the field in the reverse grid in race 1 and coming up towards the pointy end at the end of race 2. That is absolutely incredible for Crow, and definitely a worthy driver of the day in my personal opinion. But I would like to hear your thoughts, whether we agree, as we always do, as we sometimes do in the Track Racer TCR Cup. We always go our different ways in that series. But what do you think? Do we give Crow a clean sweep, or are we going to give another driver a worthy driver of the day?
Yeah, well, see, this is the thing, isn't it? We have had our disagreements on Driver of the Day in the past, more often than not, to be honest. But today, a miracle has happened because I agree with you. Crow has put on a masterclass here. And yes, he didn't get a race win. Yes, but, at the end of the day, a consistent drive is a winning drive. You don't have to win every single race to win the season. If you consistently up there in P2, P3, that is the stuff that you can call a championship win at the end of the day. So as long as he keeps up this run of performance, he will do very well. But overall, a brilliant drive from Crow today. So he will take Driver of the Day, a double nomination, in fact, for Colin Racing Team's Crow. So Jeremy Crow takes Driver of the Day.
Absolutely, and he's going to try and do his best Russell Ingall impersonation, not winning a race in 2005, and go win on the championship. So if Crow can do that, that'll be a great result for him.
And there's another person who's actually done that before as well in different leagues, and that is actually Wakefield for Mash Spuds Racing. We always talk about him in this other league that I do some work for, about having never won a race but wins championships, not races. So potentially there could be some very interesting things ahead in our future. But looking forward to our future, now it is the standings as they are after round 1. And by the way, stay tuned because we're going to be right up with Richard Lobby's qualifying results, race 1, race 2 results, and the standings, not only in the Richard Lobby, but the team standings as it is after round 1. So here we go, Nick. Oh, yes. So actually, your instincts were absolutely spot on because Crow is now in the lead of the Johnson Lobby after round 1, 178 points, closely followed by Nielsen with that big race win at the race 1. 174 points for him, and closer even is Matthew Joynson in 3rd place. Wow, 6 points separating the top 3 after round 1.
And I'll tell you what, this is going to be, if I thought Season 1 in the Johnson Lobby was a spicy lobby, I'm predicting Season 2 in the Johnson Lobby is going to get even spicier. Colin Racing Team versus Whiplash Motorsport versus Juice Motorsport. I'm all for it. And we're going to be looking at names like Van der Zandt, who had a bad race 1, got the victory in race 2. I'm expecting that CP Motorsport driver to be up towards the pecking order in the next round onwards. And unfortunately, we have a few familiar names down the order. P10, DP Mario, 110 points. Matt Kuchar. Where has his form come from? Unfortunately, his form has gone a little bit down the haywire for him, unfortunately, in this first round at Dragontrail Seaside. Gardens, rather, not the Seaside section. We are running the infield section of Dragontrail. So Kuchar, probably not familiar with the track. Maybe it's not his favorite track, but hopefully we might see a better race for him at Kyoto. And then you look at the names, as you said, is with your familiarity with Wakefield, 124 points. You can see there 3 drivers with equal points at 124. That just shows how close the racing is in this Johnson Lobby. You just don't know where drivers are going to finish because these cars are proving to be a challenge in Season 2.
Correct. So that's going to be very spicy. We'll be keeping a very close eye on that. You can expect the next Johnson Lobby delayed broadcast to be next Saturday. Of course, the next Brock Lobby, Johnson Lobby and Richards Lobby live event is going on next Tuesday evening. So make sure you are staying tuned on this channel. Like and subscribe to the channel if you've been enjoying yourselves tonight because the Brock Lobby is coming up on Tuesday evening. Keep an eye out for the notifications. Hit that bell and make sure you get notified about when that goes live because it's going to be quite the race as we go to Japan for round 2. Kyoto Yamajiwa circuit is going to be Whether it's going to be S01 and late morning, so that's going to be a very, very interesting one to go through. Less tire wear, in fact, is less variable time, I should say. So it should be a pretty stable race, but looking forward very much to that. Now, we will bring you, as that rounds out our Johnson Lobby coverage, we will now go to the Richard Lobby standings as they are. Starting off, of course, letting you guys know who went through and got it in terms of round one for qualifying in the Richards Lobby. So this is essentially the equivalent of Div 3 here for those of you who are a little bit confused with our names. Maybe, Nick, you can tell us at some point what those names are representing. I know it's part of the history of the Supercars and Season 1 and things like that, but I'll quickly go through the qualifying results and hand it over to you for the Race 1 and 2 results. So in qualifying in first place, it is Eisen for Whiplash Motorsport. Another great result for them, taking out qualifying poles in 2 lobbies. Griffin for Gridline Racing will take out P2. P3 was Ben Churchill, a familiar name with Roadstick Racing for this season. Bagnall, a new name to me, but coming in with a new team of Hooncorp Esports, takes the P4, second row on the grid. Then fifth to Mr. Pacheco, who is a familiar name for all of us. Colin Racing Team he's driving for this time out, and signing that happened, I believe, during the GD3 Champs, continuing that partnership as they go into Supercars Season 2. P6, Crook for CP Motorsport, good result there. Barlow in P7 for Black Rose Racing. Foster, another return of Karma Foster, one of my favorite drivers on the grid from GD3 Champs. P8 for her, and working for Juice Motorsport this season out. Hamilton will be there as a privateer in P9. Oliveira for Diffusion Race Engineering, the Kiwi team, and a new signing. P11, Hasseldine for Hasseldine Automotive Racing. No surprise there that he's driving for his own team. Obviously doing quite well in the other lobbies as well, but Hasseldine, P11. Then we got Ensk for Mad Turtle Racing. I'm sure I've pronounced that wrong, but we'll get that right at some point, taking P12. Rudd for Mash Spuds Racing, MSR in P13. That's Matthew Scarborough for Scarborough Motorsport. I believe are related to Dylan Scarborough, surely. P14 for him. We've got Digger in P15, another privateer, and a P16 there, a DNS slot. So, over to you, Nick, for our race results.
So qualifying was done, racing was done, and it is a lights to checkered flag for Drew Eisen for Whiplash Motorsport. So that team, that Ford Mustang, winning race 1 in both Johnson and now in the Richards Lobby. Absolute top performances by their drivers, and getting all that inspiration, I believe, from Monica Camilleri, because they know she has done a lot of hard work to get that team to where it is today in the Shawfire Supercars Series, and as the team as a whole. You know, starting her team up, Whiplash Motorsport, and those guys have been so supportive of her, and she's so grateful to have those 2 drivers in Nielsen and Eisen, and getting the victory for Whiplash Motorsport. Another Mustang victory for the Richards Lobby. Then it is Tony Griffin. So P1, P2 couldn't be separated. I did catch a little bit of action off the air, and it was a very dominant victory there by Drew Eisen, and Griffin just managed to hold on to P3 over Bagnall for Hooncorp Esports. So that's Hooncorp's first podium in the Richards Lobby. And then down in 4th place, Mark Pacheco. We saw his name in the Track Racer TCR Cup, running as a privateer, then signed for the Bundaberg Red Racing, which has now turned to Colin Racing Team. So P4 for the man in that Camaro. Then Scott Barlow for Black Rose Racing in 5th place. Graham Hamilton running the privateer. He was running for Mad Turtle Racing in the Track Racer TCR Cup, but that was given to Ents, who's just outside the top 10 in 11th. Karma Foster for Juiced Motorsport in 7th place. So that's a very strong performance there. So girl power in the top 8. So Karma Foster doing a great job. Mark Scarborough, who is related to Dylan Scarborough, inside that top 8. Hasseldine for Hasseldine Automotive Racing in 9th place, and Ben Churchill for Roadstick Racing inside the top 10. And as we said, Ensk in 11th place. Crook in 12th for CP Motorsport. Paul Rudd for Mash Buds Racing in 13th place. Luke de Oliveira in 14th place. And then Digger rounding up the 15 drivers that's featured in the Richards Lobby. And unfortunately, the TCR Div 2 champ in Mick Hill, who was supposed to be on the track for us tonight, didn't make it. So unfortunately for Mick Hill's case, no show for the Me Cougar driver development team, and which is going to be hampering their points in race 1. And then we get to race 2, a much better performance there. As we saw there, it was a reverse grid, so Crook managed to get that car up towards the front early on in the early races and got that car into P1. And another driver, again, Bagnall, P3 and P2, and getting that car really some good points there for the man at Hooncorp Racing. And then another great performance by Graham Hamilton in P3. So definitely what I'm seeing so far, Hooncorp in Richard's lobby is a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. And so that is the race results, race 1 and race 2 there for Richard Lobby. So let's have a quick look at the standings in Richard Lobbies before we go through to the team standings as it is at the end of round 1. So looking now at the standings, Bagnall will take the P1 slot there for Hooncorp Esports, 178 points, closely by Eisen for Whiplash Motorsport, 4 points separating them. So not quite as close here for Pacheco in third place as it was in the Johnson Lobby standings as it is, but Pacheco will, I'm sure, find a way to fight back in this championship. And Griffin and Hamilton closely in the toe there of Pacheco, following through in 4th and 5th. Crook in P6, Barlow in P7 overall. Karma Foster takes out P8 with some good results there for Juice Motorsport. And then we've got Churchill in P9, P10, Hasseldine, Oliveria in P11, P12, a little typo there for Ench, though, is in P12. Both of them are technically shared on 11th place. That's why it's a typo. That's why it's also not a typo, but sharing 9th, 94 points there between them. And then 13th will be Rudd, Digger in 14th place, and then Scarborough in 15th, followed by Hill, unfortunately, with that DNS. 0 points for him. So, Nick, let's go over to the team standings as it is, and then we'll be rounding out the stream today. Of course, remember to join us for next Tuesday. We'll be going through the information for that shortly.
So, after all the racing we have done here at Dragontrail Seaside, we leave Croatia for the Shawfire Supercars for Season 2, with Whiplash Motorsport taking the lead in the team standing. Both Monica Camilleri, Heath and Nielsen and Drew Eisen leading the way on 348 points. So that is some great haul points there for the Mustang team, and that's the first time we are seeing the Mustang leading this team's championship in MotorMotion Shawfire Supercars. Colin Racing Team with the leader of Mitch Collin, Jeremy Crow and Mark Pacheco in second place on 338 points. So some great performances there at Croatia for those two teams. Right behind, Mad Turtle Racing Diffusion, close behind in fourth place after Foster's perfect performances in the Brock Lobby. And then Me Cooke Driver Development with the win that got Ando Scott the victory in race 2 in Brock Lobby. And then Alexander and Mick Hill, unfortunately, with that DNS there, just hampered them a little bit in that team's championship. So with the 0 points going to Mick Hill's name, it probably could have propelled that team up in towards the, I would say, within the top 2, but sitting on a 310 points is not far away from P1, and we are only just getting started.
That's right. It's going to be an exciting round 2 as we head over to Japan, Kyoto Yamajima Circuit, and that is going to be a banger race because that is a very tricky circuit. Kind of has a similar characteristic to Dragontrail in a lot of ways because it's got that mix of high speed, fast corners, slow corners, tricky infield sections, and all the sort of stuff that makes this competition absolutely fantastic. So we're going to round out the stream there, folks, but from here in the commentary box, Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, being in the comments box with you for the start of the Supercars series, and we get the pleasure of watching our favorite Div 2 style lobbies together again. And yeah, obviously good luck to yourself being in the Brock lobby for next Tuesday out at Japan. Any plans for the team? Any secrets you're willing to share before we end the stream tonight?
I just want to make sure that my front tires are working this time round, so I'll be having a chat with my team engineer just to tell him to say, hey mate, I need my tires to work at the front, so can you please find a way to set my car up to make it softer and make it more likable on the front tires. They are hard at work there, and they are trying to find all solutions, so we'll find out very soon. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Kyoto. It's one of my actually one of my favorite tracks, the Kyoto Yamagiwa layout. It's like I said, it's very similar to Dragontrail Gardens. It's got that characteristic, so we will be seeing a lot of front tires being worn out. I believe it is the front right that gets worn out quite a fair bit around that circuit, so we'll be keeping all the drivers, all the teams will be trying to keep an eye out on that front right. It was front left at Dragontrail Gardens, and now it's going to be the front left at Kyoto, so we'll see how we all go. And in the Brock Lobby, I wish all of the Brock Lobby drivers the very best, as well as the Johnson and Richards Lobby, Yamagiwa and Kyoto for the Japanese Grand Prix. We are very excited. We cannot wait to bring you Shawfire Supercar Series, but that is going to be the end of the Div 2 broadcast. And with the Johnson Lobby drivers for participating, and for our Richards driver, unfortunately, no broadcast and no cameras were set up for the Richards lobby. So we'll hopefully get that all sorted out and maybe we'll be able to get ourselves some live coverage for the Richards lobby for the first time in Yamagima, but we'll find out very shortly.
That's exactly right. And of course, if anyone is interested in commentary or broadcasting, you can always reach out to the MotorMotion team at any time to register your interest in that. And of course, we're always looking out for good talent on the grid, those with a good bit of motorsports knowledge and the ability to stream live to the platform. So if you are interested in that, do reach out to the admin team. They're always happy to take registrants of interest there. But nonetheless, that is going to round out our broadcast coverage today of Supercars Series S2 Johnson Lobby, and looking forward to round 2. So a big thanks to the chaps over at MotorMotion E-Series putting on such a fantastic event. Well done to all the teams today. We will of course see you next time. So from the commentary box, from me and myself, it's just me in the comms box next. You don't exist anymore. From myself, George Cooke, and on behalf of Nick Pautasso and the entire team at MotorMotion E-Series, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We will see you next time. Tune in, so we will catch you then. Take care, stay safe out there. Good evening, good night, and goodbye.